The titles, taglines are pretty general. So within that can fit a lot of different things. I think that President-elect Trump will want to resume his personal relationship with President Xi. I think he is not a huge fan of Taiwan independence, and that's not U.S. policy. So let's go there. Taiwan has a separate government and its own democracy, but it is not breaking off. We still have a one China policy. And on the other things, it depends how you define democracy and et cetera, et cetera. I think that there is reason to hope, despite all the China bashing, that the Trump administration will have a thoughtful view toward China, which is competition, confrontation, and cooperation where possible. And I do think that the suggested Secretary of State will be a person of great experience. And I think we should be happy that Marco Rubio's picked. So I would say I'm somewhat optimistic. Yes, these are warning flags. But, oh, by the way, I do want to applaud. I hope you're going to ask me about this. The move that was just announced to let Ukraine finally use long-range weapons and attack military targets. And I would hope, frankly, North Korean targets in Russia. I mean, this North Korea's presence is new news. And if Trump really wants to, as he says he does, settle the Ukraine-Russia conflict in a day, unlikely, Ukraine has to be in the strongest possible position. And this is something that should have been permitted months and months ago.
Well, let's go there, Jane, and it's great to see you. This is an important development in Ukraine, and as we've seen repeatedly, it's no, 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 then maybe, then it gets to be yes, in this case with the use of ATACMS in the Kursk region. Why is it only Kursk, and why now? Why so late?
Well, I don't know why so late. I don't know why it took so long to get the ATACMS into Ukraine. As you know, I chaired this Commission on National Defense Strategy. We went to Ukraine. I've been there twice this year. And it was very clear to us that not only were these weapons in Europe, but they should have been transferred long ago. I would hope that Ukraine will also attack military targets. Let's understand what's going on as winter descends on the region. The Russians, in the cruelest act, are trying to take out the energy grid in Ukraine and a lot of civilian facilities. They're attacking Ukrainian cities. They're not just attacking the Ukrainian military. How is this going to end well? It could end well if, and I'm not talking for the Ukrainians, they have to make the settlement, but let's just imagine some territory is ceded to Russia. Let's just imagine, thought experiment, not recommending it, but also Ukraine has a clear path to NATO membership. That might have legs. And that's something that Trump might do. I know that he is very doubtful about NATO as a military alliance. But let's imagine that he doesn't do this and Russia moves into Europe on his watch. And let's imagine that Europeans, who are now very scared, move away from us. I don't think that's a picture that President-elect Trump would want. So there is a path. Bravo to President Biden for finally moving down that path to make Ukraine stronger right now.
Well, not everyone is pleased with going down that road, Jane. Congressman Thomas Massie, who's a member of the House Freedom Caucus, posted on X, by authorizing long-range missiles to strike inside Russia, Biden is committing an unconstitutional act of war that endangers the lives of all U.S. citizens. This is an impeachable offense, he says. What do you say in response?
I smile. Impeachable offense. I think we've been down that road a couple of times with President-elect Trump. I think Biden is within his power to authorize this. It's been recommended by many experts, much more expert than I, for a long time. True, there was pushback in Biden's National Security Council, also by some important journalists like David Ignatius, whom I respect and admire. But I think this is the right call. And of course, some of the Trump sympathizers would scream because in case it hurts Russia, I think that may be on their playbook, not to hurt Russia. Well, on my playbook is to defend the independent sovereign state of Ukraine, which Russia promised to defend, to respect in 1994 when Ukraine gave up its nukes. And as a member of the UN, the UN Charter says all states shall respect the sovereignty of other states. I also think, in the end, It is more dangerous to the U.S. not to do this than to do it for reasons I said. If Putin ends up in Europe, we will be either drawn into war under Article 5 of NATO or certainly be threatened by further expansion of the Russian Federation.
Well, all the while, Russia hit Ukraine with more than 200 missiles on Sunday. It was the biggest attack, the biggest combined missile and drone attack that we've seen in months. To what extent are we going to see Vladimir Putin step up military attacks in advance of Donald Trump taking office?
Why shouldn't they? They were doing it anyway. So let's not assume this is in any way directly connected to Trump. But, oh, by the way, we're now learning that there are phone calls which are not reported through the normal diplomatic channels, or alleged phone calls, reported phone calls between the president-elect and President Putin, and certainly between Elon Musk, who is the buddy-in-chief, and President Putin. It's important that our foreign policy have some guardrails and that we understand what's being said in case it's distorted later. It's very easy for that to happen and for Putin to claim a 180-degree opposite conversation if it's useful to him. Let me just make one other point, because we were talking about China. China has, I think, made clear to Russia, as we have, that the use of nukes, even on tipped on missiles, is out of bounds. And I sure hope that China will keep the pressure on Russia not to do this. That's been another Putin threat. And we've said it's a red line. I think maybe we should retire the use of red lines and get into a better form of muscular diplomacy defending U.S. interests. And that's why I'm so bullish on this decision that President Biden has just made about the use of ATACMS to attack, I would say, not only the North Korean troops, but I would say military installations that are lobbing all of this stuff to hurt civilian targets in Ukraine.